Good evening and welcome to NTD News. I'm Stephania Cox. Here are today's top stories. The anticipation is building over tonight's presidential debate. New Yorkers say they'll be watching out for hot topics like Trump's taxes and Biden's mental stamina. Supreme Court nominee Amy Coney Barrett visits Capitol Hill to meet with senators before her confirmation hearings, as per tradition. But not in accordance with tradition were the senators who refused to show up and meet with her. Texans are scrambling for ammunition and guns. Some say they're more wary amid civil unrest around the country and the presidential election drawing closer. Multiple New York City voters have reported label errors on their mail-in ballots. Some are mislabeled as military ballots. Others have more serious issues like wrong addresses and names. With the first 2020 presidential debate just hours away, we take a look at what we can expect for the upcoming face-off between President Trump and candidate Joe Biden.
Tonight, President Trump and Joe Biden will square off on the debate stage for the first time.
I am looking very forward to the debate.
With no handshakes and a limited audience, the two will go head-to-head for 90 minutes in Cleveland on the coronavirus pandemic, nationwide racial tensions, the economy, and a newly vacant seat on the Supreme Court.
Mr. President, who do you hold money to?
Trump will also face questions about a major New York Times investigation revealing that he paid little or no federal income taxes for decades, leaving his advisors scrambling to put together a response.
Joe Biden was part of making those tax laws over all the years that he was in the Congress. And so, I think that the president should answer it that way.
Former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie is among those helping Trump prepare for tonight's debate. Though sources tell CNN Trump spent little time formally preparing and resisted doing mock sessions with staff standing in for Biden, instead relying on sporadic question and answer sessions.
The president has had a few prep sessions with Mayor Rudy Giuliani, Governor Chris Christie.
The president has every right to take his head off if he wants.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Sources say Biden is planning to hit Trump on his handling of the pandemic that's killed over 200,000 Americans.
We're rounding the corner regardless.
In turn, Trump is expected to argue that voters trust him more than Biden on the economy. A top campaign aide also hinting that Trump may bring guests, echoing the stunt he pulled in 2016 after the Access Hollywood tape was released, and Trump invited 3 Bill Clinton accusers to the debate. For months, Trump has sought to portray Biden as unfit for office. But lately, aides have tried to raise the low bar they set for Biden out of fear it'll backfire on stage tonight.
Both things can be true. There are some times where Joe Biden is absolutely befuddled. But we also saw that 11 times during the Democrat primaries, he did very well.
Expecting demonstrators outside the debate, Cleveland has worked with the U.S. Secret Service, the FBI, and the Ohio National Guard to make sure the debate will be secure. Public Safety Director Carrie Howard assured citizens they've taken every precaution to ensure people can exercise their right to free speech in a safe and secure manner. And Joe Biden's campaign allegedly agreed to an inspection for electronic earpieces before the start of the first 2020 presidential debate, but now he's declining. That's according to President Trump's campaign. Trump's campaign said members of Biden's campaign asked for multiple breaks during the debate, but because Trump doesn't need them, his campaign rejected the requests. A spokeswoman from the Biden campaign called the statement completely absurd and denied accusations of Biden wearing an earpiece and that the campaign asked for breaks. When asked by reporters whether Biden's campaign had ever agreed to an inspection before the debate, the campaign strategist did not answer the question directly. Instead, she said it was ridiculous. And many New Yorkers say they plan on tuning in to watch the showdown between Trump and Biden. They said there are a few hot topics they'll be looking out for. One is Biden's mental fitness, and the other is Trump's tax returns. NTD's Kevin Hogan brings us more.
The much-anticipated presidential debate is just a few hours away. The two opponents will face off in a battle of wits in front of the American people.
I am looking very forward to the debate.
We spoke to a Biden supporter in Central Park South in New York City. She acknowledges that the recent New York Times article about Trump's taxes may cause a stir, But she says the virus will take center stage since more cases are surfacing.
I absolutely am going to be watching the debate. I'm supporting Joe Biden 100% and just want to see how he deals with the major issues that the country cares about at this time.
A New Yorker on the Upper West Side described Biden as a hesitant candidate and indicated he needs to hold his ground from personal attacks.
Well, Biden is going to have to avoid getting trapped into personal issues that Trump is going to hurl at him. He needs to keep his comments focused and pertinent to the kinds of programs he has.
Another New Yorker questions Biden's mental state and says he's tuning in to see if Biden can be cogent during the debate.
I don't think he'll, be able to do an hour and a half. His mental state has been, to me, questionable. He has flubbed a lot of his online interviews. Like his last one, he said he served in the Senate for 180 years. That tells me that his memory is, he's losing his credibility. In my case, he's losing his mental state.
Most of the people we talked to in Upper Manhattan said they'll be watching the debate tonight for the performance because they've already made up their minds. There are concerns about how Biden would adapt if Trump takes the control of the debate away from the moderators. Reporting from New York, Kevin Hogan, NTD News.
President Trump's new Supreme Court nominee, Judge Amy Coney Barrett, made her first visit to Capitol Hill since her nomination. In keeping with tradition, she met with senators, but there were many who didn't attend.
Upon arrival, Barrett was greeted by Vice President Mike Pence and Republican senators, but there was not a Democrat in sight. Inside, Pence said they look forward to a vote in the Senate in the near future.
The American people deserve a justice, like Judge Amy Coney Barrett. The American people deserve 9 justices on the Supreme Court of the United States.
Barrett's nomination has met with strong opposition from Democrats, who are urging Republicans to wait until after the election to fill the vacancy left by late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Many Democratic senators refused to meet with Barrett today in an act of protest against the nomination. It is customary for the nominee to meet with the Senate Minority Leader before the confirmation hearings. But Minority Leader Chuck Schumer wasn't there to do so. He said on Sunday that he would not meet with Barrett.
I believe, first, that the whole process has been illegitimate. I will not meet with her.
Several other Democratic senators followed suit, including Democratic Senator Kristen Gillibrand, who made it clear at an event over the weekend that she wouldn't be meeting with Barrett.
This process has been illegitimate from the beginning and rushed, and no, I will not meet with the nominee.
While no Democrats met with Barrett, several Republican senators did. Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley had glowing praise for Barrett's work and qualifications in the legal profession.
With her reputation, I would say that she's got a good chance of getting my vote for the United States Senate.
Texas Senator Ted Cruz said President Trump promised to nominate judges who would be faithful to the Constitution and protect fundamental American liberties.
I think the president's decision to nominate Judge Barrett may well have been the most important decision of his presidency. We will be honoring the promise we made to the American people to confirm principled constitutionalists to the Supreme Court.
Cruz said he expects his Democratic colleagues to do everything they can to attack Barrett, saying they have already begun to attack her family.
The attacks have been despicable, and I very much hope we don't see them recreate the personal smears that marred the Kavanaugh confirmation hearing.
Barrett ended her day meeting with Senate Judiciary Committee Lindsey Graham. Reporting by Grace Coulter, NTD News.
Senator Cruz also said the reason the Senate should act promptly to confirm the 9th justice is so the Supreme Court can resolve any cases that arise in the wake of the election, such as the results being contested. Under the Constitution, a decision can't be reached if there's an evenly divided court. And a new record in early ballot casting has been set amid the 2020 presidential election. Over 1 million people have already voted. Over 1 million people have already voted in the presidential election. That's the official number reported by 25 states. The real number is likely to be much higher because some states have yet to report their early voting totals. Others count early ballots on the local level. Around the same time during the 2016 election, not even 10,000 people had cast their ballots. As for the reasons behind the change, some states expanded voting laws, like Virginia. Almost 300,000 ballots have been already cast there, the most of any state, while voters in other states were motivated by virus concerns. Over 250,000 people have voted in North Carolina, despite no changes to the state's early voting law. In New York City, voters have reported that the labels on their mail-in ballots had big mistakes. The Board of Elections says it's aware of the problem and that it will be fixed. But there's no details so far on how they plan to fix it. NTD's Melina Weiskup has more on that.
According to a number of social media posts and reports by local media, some New York City voters have gotten absentee ballots with label mistakes, notably in the Brooklyn borough. Some have wrong addresses, names, and voter ID information. One resident posted on Twitter, 2 out of 3 of the absentee ballots we received today had the wrong name on the ballot. Another posted that she got a message from her neighbor, whom she's never met, telling her that he received her ballot. But she says she also just got her own ballot in the mail. Some ballots have been mislabeled as military ballots. After learning of this typo, the Board of Elections first said the ballots should in fact read absentee military ballot, even if the voter is not in the military. But in a later post, the board directed voters to contact them if they received a ballot with such an error. The board blamed an outside vendor, Phoenix Graphics. The ballot printing company did not immediately respond to our request for comment. While ballots mislabeled as military can still be used by non-military voters and be counted, incorrect name and address information on envelopes is more serious. Those could lead to voided ballots and voter disenfranchisement. It's unclear how many voters have been affected, but the Board of Elections Director Michael Ryan told the outlet The Gothamist the problem will get corrected. Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
U.S. Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross is trying to wrap up data collection for the 2020 census by October 5th. That's weeks before its current October 31st end date. In August, the Trump administration said it planned to shorten the timeline by a month. Civil rights groups and municipalities sued, saying a rushed schedule would lead to inaccurate results. Last week, a judge barred the Trump administration from ending the count by September 30th. The Census Bureau counts all Americans every 10 years. This year's count was pushed back because of the pandemic. Accuracy is important as it determines voting districts and where federal aid goes. And in Texas, people are buying more guns. As the November election inches closer, some fear increased violence, and others worry that gun laws could change.
Texans are scrambling for ammunition and guns amid increased civil unrest and the upcoming presidential election. One young sales associate at Full Armor Firearms believes the conversation goes beyond the right to bear arms.
My name is Makai Barnes. I am 22 years old. I'm in the gun industry about 2 years, and I feel like the Second Amendment is so important to a lot of people because you can't leave your life into somebody else's hands every single time, but you can protect your own.
Americans differ in their opinion on gun control and gun reform. For advocates of gun reform like Gabriela Diaz at Moms Demand Action in Houston, the conversation is simple, and she thinks most would agree with her stance.
I've yet to meet a gun owner who disagrees with me on issues like disarming domestic abusers and having a criminal background check for every gun sale.
Moms Demand Action is the Houston chapter of gun violence prevention organization Everytown. It is investing $8 million in advertising in Texas during the election. Gregory Urdaneta is from Venezuela and the CEO of Target on Trigger, which is a personal protection company. 2 of his 3 sons are gun owners. His wife works at Full Armor Firearms as a range marshal and instructor. He says if any gun reforms take place in the near future, responsible gun owners will be affected the most.
When you pass a law to take away people's rights to own weapons, the only people who will not have weapons are those who follow the law. Those who do not follow the law, which are the thugs, they will have weapons.
Urdaneta says there's a lot at stake in every election.
President Trump has now been nominated a 3rd time for the Nobel Peace Prize. This time, the nomination came from a group of Australian law professors who praised the president's Trump doctrine, which supporters say has reduced America's tendency to get involved in any and every war. The doctrine refers to Trump's foreign policy, which experts have described as radically different than any other president's. One of the legal scholars from the group told Fox News how impressive it was that the president negotiated directly with Middle East leaders using common sense, even though that move went against all advice. The scholar also said Trump is the first president to create a plan that will let America be energy independent from the Middle East. Trump's first nomination for the Nobel Peace Prize came from a Norwegian parliament member for his accomplishment bringing the United Arab Emirates and Israel closer. The second nomination came from a Swedish parliament member who wants to recognize Trump's economic normalization deal between Serbia and Kosovo. And next up, New York City is now requiring everyone to mask up or be fined. It's the mayor's response to a surging number of cases in some neighborhoods. That and more after the break. For the first time in the pandemic, New Yorkers will be fined for not wearing a mask in public. The mayor says the mask mandate is meant to put a stop to a surge of virus cases in some neighborhoods. NTD's Miguel Moreno has more from Brooklyn.
Mayor Bill de Blasio says 9 neighborhoods in Brooklyn and Queens are driving up the city's average number of weekly CCP virus cases. For the first time in months, he says the city's daily average number of positive cases is over 3%, so he issued a mask mandate in response.
Anyone who is not wearing a face covering will be offered one, will be reminded it is required, and anyone who refuses to wear a face covering will be told that if they don't put one on, they will be fined, and anyone who still refuses will be fined.
According to the city, positive virus cases in Kew Garden Hills, Rego Park, and Kensington were driving up the city's weekly average. This is the first time in the CCP virus pandemic that de Blasio has required New Yorkers to wear a mask in public. For the most part, New Yorkers told us they support it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's obvious. I mean, this is not 100%. Guarantee not to get the COVID or something, but definitely it's the next best choice.
It's not fair to people like me. I'm healthy, but I'm almost 70 years old and I have heart disease. And I'll be damned if I'm going to let people in my neighborhood have the opportunity to possibly infect me.
The state had already issued a mask mandate in subways. People not wearing masks in subways could already be fined up to $50. But de Blasio didn't say how much a fine would be for not wearing one in public. He's also urging people to get tested. Miguel Moreno, NTD News, New York.
The latest wildfires in California continue to burn and threaten people's lives and homes. The number of acres burned this year is the highest ever in California's history.
Residents of the Northern California town Santa Rosa had to run to safety on Monday. They were checking in at evacuation assistance centers throughout the region. People are uncertain if it's safe to stay at home as another wildfire burns through the area. The glass fire has spread across at least 11,000 acres in Napa and Sonoma counties since early Sunday, burning homes, forcing thousands of residents to flee, and threatening world-renowned vineyards. One resident left on Sunday night, but her evacuation took longer than expected.
It was just like almost as if someone might have been out to get me. Like it was just unreal. Like my phone was shut off as my car was breaking down. The car wouldn't start.
The fire quadrupled in size overnight from Sunday to Monday. Almost 40,000 homes and businesses lost power in the region. The fire was listed at zero containment as of Monday evening. The cause is under investigation. Another resident of the area said his evacuation went smoothly. He said he doesn't see it as a major problem at the moment.
I brought clothes and the whole bit, and it's not as if I'm in the middle of nowhere because there are restaurants around here. You can buy food and the whole bit. And I've been in contact with some of my friends, so all I have to do is give them a call and I can take a shower, so that's no big issue.
The glass fire is the latest inferno in a historically destructive year throughout the U.S. West. In California alone, wildfires have scorched almost 4 million acres. That far exceeds any single year in state history.
A crew of Oregon prison inmates trudge through the smoldering Cascade Mountains. They're part of a decades-old program that allows prisoners to battle wildfires. Many take to it so well that they say they've found their calling.
These men haul chainsaws, axes, and other heavy equipment through ankle-deep ash up mountainsides, hacking at the earth in search of smoldering embers. And they do it for just $6 a day. But for this crew of Oregon prison inmates, such as Rhett Howerton, it's an opportunity.
Gives them a chance to get out of the facility, gives them a chance to learn a lot about what it means to be a team member, gives them a chance to really show what they can do instead of just being viewed as inmates. And I'm out here because I love the woods, and it gives me a sense of purpose.
The men wake up at 6:30 a.m. each day in Oregon's cold, early fall dawn. They wear sweatshirts, identifying them as inmates. Then they form 10-man fire-mopping crews and set out to stamp out cinders still burning from the record wildfires that have so far torched more than 1 million acres this season. For decades, Oregon and other states have relied on prison labor to battle forest fires. Many of the inmates have violent crime convictions, including assaults and armed robberies. No one convicted of homicide or sex crimes is allowed to do this sort of labor outdoors. David Halblieb is a correctional officer who sees the program as a boon for the prisoners.
Most of them love it, and it's just a good experience to be in the outdoors, the feeling of being semi-free, you know. And it's just, a lot of them want that life skill. Some of them, in fact, say this is what they've decided they're going to do. Some really want to do this after they get out.
Inmate Desmond DeLille seems to agree.
It's a good program. It gives you the opportunity to get out the institution and meet firefighters and see what it's like. So if you want to do this when you get out, it gives you a chance to actually do stuff that's not in the streets.
Up next, 550 million people will soon be traveling across China despite more and more cases of the CCP virus. That's as the country's week-long National Day holiday is set to begin later this week. And the Trump administration has reportedly sanctioned China's biggest chip makers. If imposed, an expert says they could serve as the latest blow to China's military. Beijing claims to have tamed the virus outbreak in the country. Now it claims there's no need for a travel ban. But with China's National Day holiday fast approaching, millions are expected to travel across the country, raising concerns. NTD's Tiffany Meyer brings us more.
First, we turn to China's CCP virus situation. China's National Health Commission announced on Tuesday that the country has not seen any new infection cases locally in the past 44 days. It added that there have been no suspected cases either. The commission claims that all new cases have come from other countries. In line with China's so-called success in controlling the virus, Beijing says it no longer sees a need for a travel ban. That's as the country's week-long National Day holiday is set to begin later this week. The holiday commemorates the Chinese Communist Party's, or CCP's, rise to power in 1949. China's Tourism Research Institute estimates that 550 million people will travel across China over the holiday week for sightseeing and visiting family. And according to China's National Railway Group, trains are expected to carry over 100 million passengers within an 11-day time frame. Former virologist at the U.S. Army Research Institute, Dr. Sean Lin, says he believes China isn't secure enough to allow that amount of mass travel. While citizens across the country have told us that local virus cases have never actually stopped, despite official reports. 10 days ago, Ruili City in southwest China was put under wartime status, equivalent to a state of emergency in the U.S. It was issued due to the area's serious virus situation, although authorities claim all new cases came from other countries. Many universities are also still under lockdown. Students at some of them haven't been allowed to leave their campuses for a month. That's as confirmed cases have been recently reported in the Inner Mongolia region, the Xinjiang region, the southwestern province of Yunnan, and in at least 2 northeastern provinces, Heilongjiang and Liaoning. Cases have also appeared in Hong Kong. Due to China's lack of transparency, the reported cases likely make up only a small portion of the country's actual infection numbers. Dr. Sean Lin says the virus is still spreading in China and that the country's zero-case claims are only part of the CCP's propaganda. Now we look to southern China, where virus prevention measures are being put in motion. The city of Guangzhou announced on Tuesday that it will build multiple makeshift hospitals to handle an influx of CCP virus patients. Large sports venues and exhibition halls will be repurposed for medical use. According to Chinese media, the makeshift hospitals will have room for more than 8,000 beds. But an update from Guangzhou's health committee claims that there were only 7 infection cases reported on the day of the announcement. Going even further, it said all sickened patients had come from other countries. The committee's vice director, Chen Bing, said during the press conference that the implementation of the fall and winter epidemic prevention plan is the priority. She also emphasized the importance of normalizing epidemic prevention measures in the city. Now we look to a Canadian court case, but with an unusual twist. The hearing held unexpected meaning for Chinese citizens and their trust in made-in-China products, especially face masks. Meng Wanzhou, chief financial officer of Chinese telecoms giant Huawei, appeared in Canadian court on Monday. The hearing featured a continued debate over her possible extradition to the United States. But the hearing sparked unexpected backlash, surprisingly over Meng's face mask. Photos taken by media outlets clearly show the words "Made in Taiwan" printed on her pink-purple mask. Masks made in China have recently come under fire for reported quality control problems, especially from other countries who have purchased them. While masks made in Taiwan have been praised for their high quality. Meng was arrested in Canada 2 years ago. The United States accused her of bank fraud and violating U.S. sanctions against Iran. The U.S. requested that the Canadian government extradite her. Canadian court documents reveal that when Meng was arrested, she had multiple Apple products in her possession, including an iPhone 7 Plus, a MacBook Air, and an iPad Pro. Meanwhile, she only had one Huawei smartphone. Huawei CEO and also Meng's father, Ren Zhenfei, was also exposed for using Apple products instead of Huawei's. One netizen commented on Twitter saying that it's their job to be against the U.S., yet they moved to North America to live comfortably, obtain a Hong Kong Special Administrative Region passport as an insurance policy, and wear Taiwan-made masks to save their own lives.
China's military ambition could be facing a devastating blow. The White House has reportedly sanctioned China's biggest chip maker, citing ties to the Chinese military. NTD's Juliet Song has more.
The U.S. has reportedly imposed sanctions on China's biggest chip maker, SMIC. Multiple media reports say the Commerce Department asked American chip companies to apply for licenses before exporting certain technologies to SMIC. Our in-house expert says if the administration moves ahead with a sanction, it would be much harder for the Chinese military to get its hands on the technologies it needs to compete with the U.S.
If SMIC is hit by the sanction, the Chinese regime's military supply system would suffer a devastating blow, a crushing blow. The Chinese regime's military supplies would lag behind by decades.
He added the sanction could cut off the Chinese military's access to one of the most critical technologies, semiconductors or chips. Chips power military applications from missiles to rockets, and an upgrade in China's chip-making ability gives the military an edge in warfare. That's because Beijing has been trying to build the most advanced military in the world by obtaining cutting-edge foreign technologies through private companies. The Chinese regime calls the strategy military-civil fusion, and under the Communist Party's rule, private companies don't have the power to say no to their requests. SMIC is one of China's most advanced chip makers, but it relies heavily on U.S. technologies to manufacture its chips. SMIC denies any links to the Chinese military. In a statement, it said the company products are solely for civilian, commercial, and end users, but evidence suggests otherwise. In 2017, the Chinese military's Equipment Development Department co-hosted a tech conference in Beijing. The event shows off China's most advanced military technologies, and one of them is a chip named KD5660. The chip is manufactured by SMIC. It powers a type of machine that is also on the Chinese military's shopping list. And the ties don't stop there. One of SMIC's biggest shareholders is Datang Telecom, which provides telecom equipment to the Chinese military. Reporting by Juliet Song, NTD News.
Coming up, Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden releases his 2019 tax returns hours before his first debate with President Trump. Biden's campaign says it displays his transparency. And U.S. pension funds sue one of the world's biggest asset managers. The suit claims investors lost about $4 billion during the pandemic. That and more after the break. Joe Biden has released his 2019 tax returns just hours before his first debate with President Trump. A New York Times report 2 days ago said Trump paid just $750 in federal income taxes in 2016 and 2017, and no federal taxes in 10 of the previous 15 years. Trump called the report fake news, and we have some analysis on that in a moment. Biden's tax returns show that he and his wife paid more than $346,000 in federal taxes and other payments on an income of nearly $985,000. The campaign also released 2019 tax returns for Biden's running mate, Senator Kamala Harris. Biden's deputy campaign manager says the move shows that Biden is transparent and that he'd worry less over financial gain and more about Americans. She called on Trump to release his tax returns too. And in response to Biden's release, Trump campaign communications director Tim Murtaugh said Joe Biden has repeatedly claimed he's never made more than $400,000. We now know that that's a lie. And Republican Congressman Kevin Brady is calling for an investigation into the source of the New York Times report. Brady is the top Republican on the House Ways and Means Committee. In a statement, he said, while many critics question the article's accuracy, equally troubling is the prospect that a felony crime was committed by releasing the private tax return information of an individual, in this case, the president's. Brady says the source of the New York Times report should be investigated, and if a law was broken, should be prosecuted. The New York Times said its sources had legal access to the documents. It denied a Trump Organization lawyer's request for access, saying it's to protect the identities of the sources. And we sent a request to the New York Times for comment, but haven't gotten a response. Now, major U.S. pension funds from teachers, truck drivers, and even subway workers are suing one of Germany's biggest asset managers. They claim it didn't protect their investments during the pandemic.
U.S. pension funds are suing one of the biggest asset managers, Allianz of Germany, for not protecting their investments during the pandemic meltdown. According to Reuters, the various suits filed in New York claim investors lost around $4 billion. Subway workers' retirement funds at the New York MTA lost over $300 million. That's a 97% loss in just one quarter. While the losses are disappointing, Allianz says the MTA knew what it was getting into by investing in high-risk, high-reward hedge funds.
It's a tough call. I feel for the groups that have lost money with particular strategies.
Steve Taddy, partner at wealth manager Hoyle Cohen, says even if you see the downturn coming, you may not get out in time.
Even if you see the train wreck coming in some of these products, you may not be able to get out of the way because the one thing with private investments, hedge funds, etc., is they're not very liquid.
Teddy says both parties are at fault and need to take responsibility. He expects to see more of these problems as the pandemic goes on.
So the longer problem goes on, you'll have more issues come up. So it wouldn't surprise me to see more things like this come up as opposed to less.
In addition to the MTA, pension funds from Blue Cross Blue Shield, Arkansas teachers, and a truck drivers union also have lawsuits against Allianz. Phil Zhou, NTD News.
JPMORGAN Chase has been slapped with a record $920 million fine. The New York-based lender admitted to misconduct in a spoofing probe. It's the largest penalty ever issued by the Commodity Futures Trading Commission.
JPMorgan has admitted wrongdoing and agreed to pay over $920 million to settle claims of market manipulation. The charges relate to the illegal practice known as spoofing, which it engaged in while trading metal securities and treasury securities over an 8-year period. It's the biggest spoofing fine ever. The penalty ends a criminal investigation of the bank, leading to 6 employees being charged for rigging the price of gold and silver. 2 have pleaded guilty and the other 4 are awaiting trial. Spoofing involves flooding the market with orders that traders don't intend to execute to trick others about which direction the market is moving in. Spoofing was made illegal in 2010. The highest person charged is Michael Nowak. He was the global head of JP Morgan's precious metals desk and was indicted under seal in 2019 with 2 others. JP Morgan was charged under the 1970 Racketeer Influenced and Corruptions Organizations Act, a criminal law more commonly applied to mafia cases than banking probes.
Up next, the UK has unveiled its post-virus economic measures. It will provide free courses to undereducated adults to boost their skills and improve the UK's productivity. And Oxford University is taking measures to protect students from new security law in Hong Kong. Students will attend China-related classes and submit papers anonymously. Find out more after the break. Over to Europe. The COVID-19 pandemic has made the UK recognize some of its weaknesses. Prime Minister Johnson is determined to boost people's skills. NTD UK's Neil Woodrow will bring us more news from Europe.
Thanks. Welcome to our UK newsroom, bringing UK and European news. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson announces new measures to boost skills after COVID-19 exposes UK's shortages.
Johnson says Britain's economy is underproductive and its weaknesses have been exposed by the pandemic.
Our economy has been shaken by COVID, and in the hand-to-mouth scrabblings of the pandemic, the shortcomings of our labour market and our educational system have been painfully apparent.
Johnson announces that adults in England without a high school qualification will be offered a fully funded college course.
And it's not as though the market doesn't require these skills. The market will pay richly. The problem is one of supply.
Johnson also says he welcomes skilled immigrants.
I remain very, very open to this country being, a beacon for scientific geniuses who want to come here, talented people who want to come and make their life.
Only 10% of British adults have a higher technical qualification as their highest qualification, compared to 20% in Germany and 34% in Canada.
At Oxford University, students specialising in Chinese subjects will attend classes and submit papers anonymously. The university says it's to protect them from possible retribution under the new security law introduced 3 months ago in Hong Kong. Group tutorials will be replaced by one-to-ones, and it will be a disciplinary offence if students record classes or share them with outside groups. The new law gives Beijing powers to arrest individuals who are not Hong Kong residents for actions or comments made outside of the territory. Christopher Hughes, Professor of International Relations at the London School of Economics, said that granting anonymity addresses the symptoms but not the cause. Oxford's decision follows similar moves by elite US colleges. And British Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab meets his South Korean counterpart in Seoul. Raab and Kang Kyung-hwa are discussing further collaboration in trade, development and regional security.
And we're also clear-eyed about the security threats that we all face and the regional threats to stability. And we, as the UK, want to be a force for good in all of these areas. And we think we can be so working very closely with the Republic of Korea.
Raab also visited the heavily guarded demilitarized zone between North and South Korea. He reaffirmed the UK support of South Korea's efforts to improve relations with the North and the UK's determination to push the North to denuclearization. Raab is on a multi-country trip. His next stop is Vietnam. And China's plan to relocate its UK embassy to the East End of London is facing opposition. The embassy is moving from its current location to a large site in the borough of Tower Hamlets, opposite the Tower of London. According to the Guardian newspaper, councillors of Tower Hamlets are pushing for an emergency motion about the relocation to be debated. Councillors supporting the motion say officials should condemn the treatment of the Uyghur Muslims in China and stand with pro-democracy protesters in Hong Kong. At 38%, Tower Hamlets has the largest proportion of Muslim residents in the UK, compared to the national average of 5%. Some councillors are doubting whether the relocation should go ahead. France is banning the use of wild animals in circuses, phasing out orcas and dolphin shows, and outlawing mink farming for fur. The Environment Minister says the transition will take several years. A budget of more than $9 million will be provided to support animal shows switching to a new business model. She said the measures would affect about 80 circuses. France's 3 dolphinariums and 4 mink farms will close within 10 and 5 years respectively. Some 20 European countries already have similar restrictions in place. And in the south of France, the pandemic has disrupted a favourite collective pastime for retirees.
A group of mostly pensioners settle into a game of pétanque, the French version of lawn bowls. The club in the French resort of Nice would normally be teeming with people, but now only about a third of members come regularly.
It is still very worrying, because people are nervous about getting together, so there are only about a third of us here.
Sanchez said the club is central to the social lives of many members who struggled during lockdown.
There was real disappointment during lockdown because when you're retired, the pétanque ground is where you go the most, where you have fun with all the people here.
The region also has a large concentration of retirees. People aged 60 and upwards make up almost 30% of the population in Nice, compared to about 20% nationally. The French government has designated the region around Nice as a zone of heightened alert.
That's all from us for now. Thank you for watching. Back to New York.
Thanks, Neil. And at over 90 years of age, the ruler of the Middle Eastern country Kuwait has died. The nation's state media announced his death on TV.
Kuwait's ruler has died. His office released a statement via state television. It is with great sadness and sorrow. The Emir's court sends its condolences to the Kuwaiti people as well as the Arab and Islamic world, and the people of friendly nations. The passing away of the forgiven, God willing, His Highness. The Emir was 91. He ruled the oil-producing nation since 2006 and steered its foreign policy for more than 50 years. Kuwait is a U.S. ally. The Emir also tried balancing relations with its neighbors, forging close ties with Saudi Arabia, rebuilding links with former occupier Iraq, and keeping open dialogue with Iran. He also tried to mediate a dispute in the region when the Saudis and its allies imposed a boycott on Qatar. A secession is not expected to affect oil policy or foreign investment strategy through the nation's sovereign wealth fund. The Emir's half-brother will be sworn in as his successor on Wednesday.
Coming up, the 550-foot marble obelisk towering over Washington, D.C. is set to reopen again after virus restrictions. Visitors will soon be able to marvel in the monument that honors the nation's first president. And 2 beluga whales have been released into a sea sanctuary off the coast of Iceland. They will be a natural attraction for a town of 4,000 residents. That and more after the break. The National Park Service says the Washington Monument will reopen to visitors October 1st. It's been closed for 6 months. NPS says visitors will have to get their tickets online and wear face masks while inside. The monument will have limited elevator capacity. Visitors will have to follow an observation deck time limit and use extra sanitation procedures. And 2 beluga whales are enjoying their first swim in their new home in Iceland. An open water sea sanctuary took the mammals in for captivity on Monday.
Whales Little White and Little Gray had their first swim in their new open water sea sanctuary on Monday. The pair touched down at Iceland's Keflavik International Airport last June. The whales were then moved to a bayside care pool in August. Their new home is a sea pen in a pristine bay off Iceland's south coast.
We have a great opportunity to learn how these belugas, which have lived in a captive environment for most of their lives, how they adapt to a more natural habitat. So what patterns do they develop? How do they adjust to the habitat they're in? And then we can share that information to improve the welfare of more than 300 belugas that are in captivity around the world.
The whales were captured in Russian waters over 10 years ago. Then they were sold to an aquarium in Shanghai. British corporation Merlin Entertainment acquired the aquarium. The company has a policy against captive whales and dolphins, so it teamed up with wildlife charity Sea Life Trust to spearhead the effort.
It's like letting your kids drive for the first time or, sending them off to school. I'm terrified. I'm absolutely terrified. Have I done the work that I need to do to prepare them so they're not scared and that they're successful?
Conservationists plan to gradually release the whales into the bay. They will continue to assess their health in care pools. The whales' presence on the Westman Islands is expected to be a main attraction for the town of 4,000 residents.
And that's all for today's news. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Stephanie Cox.